3 months ago, my wife told me she had cancer. My name is David, 50 years old, marketing consultant from Connecticut. Today I found out she made our 12-year-old son lie for her. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is discovering that everything I thought I knew about my family was a performance. And my son, the boy I raised since he could barely walk, had been carrying her secret like a weight, crushing his soul. She broke us both, but I rebuilt us stronger. For 15 years, I thought I was living the perfect life. Beautiful house in suburbia with the white picket fence and manicured lawn. Successful business that I'd built from nothing. Loving wife named Sarah who seemed devoted to our family. But the real center of my world was Ethan. He wasn't my blood, but I carried him to bed every night. Sarah brought him into our marriage when he was barely 2. A shy, sensitive little boy who preferred books to playground chaos. His biological father had vanished like smoke, leaving Sarah alone with a child who needed stability. When we got married, I didn't just gain a wife, I became a father. The first time he called me Dad changed everything. We were building a Lego castle in the living room, pieces scattered everywhere like colorful confetti. He was maybe 4, tongue poking out in concentration as he tried to attach a tiny flag to the highest tower.
Dad, does this go here?
The word hit me like lightning. Not forced, not prompted by Sarah, just natural, like he'd been waiting his whole little life to say it. I knelt down beside him, my throat tight with emotion I couldn't name. Yeah, buddy, that goes right there. From that moment on, I was his. Completely, utterly his. We had traditions that were ours alone. Saturday morning pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. He insisted on different species each week. Bedtime stories where I'd let him pick the voices for every character, even the villains. Teaching him to ride his bike in our driveway, running alongside him with my hand on his back until that magical moment when I let go and he was flying free.
Look, Dad, I'm doing it.
He'd shout, wobbling but determined. Those moments were pure gold, pure joy. But the other kids at school sensed his gentleness. They made him a target. He'd come home with torn backpacks, scraped knees, excuses that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces.
I fell down the stairs. I walked into the locker. It was an accident, Dad.
But I knew better. I'd been that sensitive kid once, so I became his shield, his protector, his champion. I taught him chess on rainy afternoons, showing him how the quiet pieces could be the most powerful on the board. Helped with homework at the kitchen table, celebrating every small victory like it was the World Series. Made sure he knew that being different wasn't being wrong, it was being extraordinary. We had our routine when Sarah traveled for work. Pizza from Tony's, extra cheese, no mushrooms, action movies that made us both laugh until our sides hurt. Him falling asleep against my shoulder while credits rolled, his breathing soft and peaceful. I'd carry him upstairs, tuck him in, and whisper, "Love you, kiddo," into the darkness of his room. He'd mumble back,
Love you too, Dad.
already half dreaming. Those were the happiest years of my life. I thought they'd last forever. I should have been watching my wife more closely. Looking back, there were signs I missed. Or maybe I just didn't want to see them. Sarah had started working late more frequently. New projects, she claimed. Difficult clients who demanded evening meetings. She'd come home energized rather than exhausted, humming songs I didn't recognize. Her phone was always face down now. She'd taken to showering immediately after walking through the door.
Long day.
She'd say, kissing my cheek with lips that tasted like mint gum.
I need to wash off the stress.
New clothes appeared in her closet. Elegant blouses and dresses that seemed too sophisticated for client meetings. When I complimented them, she'd laugh and say her boss had mentioned the importance of professional presentation. There were unexplained charges on our credit card, expensive lunches at restaurants downtown I'd never heard of, a spa day I never heard about until I saw the receipt tucked between pages of a magazine. When I asked, she had explanations ready. Too ready. Too rehearsed.
The team took me out to celebrate hitting quarterly numbers. Rebecca convinced me to try that new French place. Sometimes a girl needs to pamper herself, you know.
I'd nod and smile because I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was too painful to consider. But the biggest sign was how she'd started looking at Ethan, not with the warmth of a mother who'd raised him for 10 years, with something calculating, cold, like he was a problem she was trying to solve. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. Sarah came out of the bathroom holding medical papers, hands shaking like autumn leaves. She'd been to the doctor for routine blood work, she said. Nothing about her face looked routine.
David,
she whispered, collapsing onto our bed like her legs had given out.
we need to talk.
The word came out like a death sentence. Cancer. Ovarian cancer. Stage 2. Aggressive but treatable, she said. The oncologist wanted chemotherapy immediately. Surgery might be necessary down the line. Treatment would be expensive, exhausting. No guarantees. I held her while she cried, my own heart shattering as I watched this strong woman crumble before my eyes. Her tears felt hot against my shirt, her body trembling like a bird with a broken wing. "We'll fight this," I promised, stroking her hair. "Whatever it takes, however long it takes." I rearranged my entire existence around her illness. I canceled client meetings to drive her to appointments, sitting in sterile waiting rooms that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Researched experimental treatments until my eyes burned from screen glare, printing articles and highlighting statistics like my life depended on it. I hired cleaning services so she wouldn't have to worry about housework. Started grocery delivery so she could rest. Learned to cook meals gentle enough for a stomach supposedly ravaged by chemo. Bland soups, saltine crackers, ginger tea that would help with nausea. When she was too exhausted to help Ethan with homework, I stayed up late at the kitchen table, making sure his math problems were perfect, his book reports thoughtful. When she couldn't attend his school events, I went alone, taking pictures and videos to show her later. The medical bills piled up like a mountain I couldn't climb. Sarah's insurance covered some treatments, not others. I dipped into our savings first, watching our nest egg disappear like sand through fingers. Then my retirement fund, years of careful planning evaporating overnight. When that wasn't enough, I took out a second mortgage on our house. My business suffered as I spent less time with clients, more time in hospital waiting rooms. But I told myself it was temporary. We'd get through this together. But something felt wrong. Sarah never lost her hair during chemotherapy, not a single strand. Her complexion remained healthy, glowing even. Her appetite was good, too good for someone supposedly battling treatment nausea. She had energy for work trips, but claimed exhaustion whenever I suggested family time. The doubt started small, like a splinter buried under skin, barely noticeable until you pressed against it. Her phone buzzed at strange hours now. 2, 3 in the morning. She'd glance at it with reflexes too quick for someone supposedly groggy from medication, then silence it with an apologetic smile.
Work emergency.
She'd whisper, slipping out of bed.
You know how it is.
But her fingers danced across the screen with an intimacy that felt wrong for business correspondence. And I'd lie there in the darkness, listening to her muffled voice from the bathroom, wondering when my wife had become a stranger. I hired Marcus Webb, a private investigator my lawyer friend had recommended. I felt sick doing it, like I was betraying our marriage vows, violating the trust that should exist between husband and wife. But the splinter of doubt had become a festering wound that wouldn't heal. Within 2 weeks, Marcus had answers. Photographs that made my stomach turn. Phone records that told a story I never wanted to read. Financial documentation that painted a picture of systematic deception. Sarah wasn't sick. She'd never had cancer. The medical appointments were fiction. The treatments, elaborate fantasy. Instead, she'd been conducting an affair with James Morrison, her district manager, a married man 15 years younger with a reputation for exploiting his position with female sales representatives. But the betrayal went deeper than adultery. She'd been systematically stealing from our joint accounts, transferring money to a private account I knew nothing about. The second mortgage I'd taken out to pay for her treatment? That money had funded luxury vacations and expensive gifts for her lover. She'd used my love, my dedication to her recovery, as cover for the wholesale destruction of our life together. I sat in my car outside Marcus's office, staring at evidence folders that contained 15 years of marriage, reduced to grainy photographs and bank statements. My hands trembled as I flipped through images of Sarah kissing another man, entering hotel rooms, laughing at restaurants I'd never been to. I was hollowed out, a man running on fumes. I couldn't remember the last time I laughed and meant it. Every day felt like swimming through concrete, pretending normalcy while my world crumbled from the inside. I'd lost more than money and business. I'd lost faith in my own judgment, in my ability to protect the people I loved. I felt like I might vomit, or scream, or both. But then I thought about Ethan. That night, around midnight, I heard soft crying from his room. I padded down the hallway in bare feet, my heart already breaking before I knew why. The sound was muffled, like he was crying into his pillow, trying not to wake us. "Ethan, you okay, buddy?" Silence. Then a shaky voice.
"I'm fine, Dad."
But he wasn't fine. I could hear it in those 2 words, a weight that no 12-year-old should carry. He was curled up in bed, face red and streaked with tears, clutching the stuffed dinosaur I'd bought him for his 8th birthday. "What's wrong?" I asked, sitting on the edge of his bed. He looked at me with eyes that held too much knowledge for his age, guilt and terror and love all mixed together.
"Dad, I need to tell you something about Mom,"
he whispered. My heart stopped. The world tilted on its axis. The words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them back for months.
"She's not really sick. She never was. She goes to hotels with Uncle James instead of the doctor. She told me not to tell you, because if I did, she'd send me away to live with strangers. She said you'd blame me for not telling you sooner, and you wouldn't want me anymore because I'm not really your son."
I froze. Because in that moment, it wasn't just betrayal I felt. It was fear. That I hadn't protected him. That he'd spent months believing he didn't belong in our home. This child, my child, had been carrying the weight of adult deception, convinced that telling the truth would cost him the only father he'd ever known. Each word hit me like a physical blow. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd terrorized a child, my child. I chose the setting for her exposure with surgical precision, her company's annual regional meeting at the downtown Marriott. Sarah had been looking forward to it for weeks, probably because it meant more time with James. She'd bought a new dress for the occasion, using our money, of course.
"Wish me luck,"
she said, kissing my cheek before leaving.
"Break a leg,"
I replied, and meant it in ways she couldn't imagine. I arrived early, dressed in my best suit, carrying myself with the dignity of a man who had nothing to hide. I mingled with Sarah's colleagues, playing the role of the supportive husband, battling cancer alongside his brave wife. When Sarah took the podium to present quarterly sales figures, I moved to the back of the room. She looked radiant up there, confident, powerful, completely in control. During the question and answer period, I raised my hand. "Sarah, I have a question about integrity in sales relationships." She spotted me in the crowd, and her face lit up with genuine delight.
Of course, honey. What would you like to know?
The room turned to look at me, 50 faces curious about what the supportive husband might ask. I'd like to know how someone maintains professional integrity while conducting an affair with their married district manager and embezzling money from their family to fund that relationship. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop in that ballroom. Sarah's face cycled through emotions too quickly to process. White, then red, then white again. I have photographs, I said. I have bank records showing systematic transfers to your personal account. I have recorded phone calls where you laugh about how easy it is to manipulate a man who loves you. The police are waiting outside, I continued. They have warrants for both you and James. As security escorted her toward the exit, she turned back one last time.
You've ruined everything,
She hissed. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. I just stopped pretending not to see it. Sarah served 8 months in prison, lost her job, her reputation, her future. James lost everything in his divorce, ended up selling insurance in Delaware. But their consequences weren't what mattered to me. What mattered was rebuilding. 6 months later, Ethan sat across from me at breakfast, working on algebra with focused determination. He slept peacefully now, laughed at my terrible dad jokes. The house felt quieter without Sarah's presence, but somehow warmer. 1 year after the hotel confrontation, Ethan brought home straight A's. We celebrated with pizza and ice cream. I'm proud of you, I told him.
For the grades?
For everything. For surviving. For being brave. For being exactly who you are. He smiled, uncomplicated by secrets or fear.
Thanks, Dad.
2 words that contained everything important. Forgiveness, love, the promise of a future built on truth. I may not have given him life, but he gave me purpose. And finally, we're both free. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, like this video, and subscribe for more infidelity stories, cheating wife stories, lost love chronicles, and inspirational stories about finding the strength to start over.